gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the channel and welcome to another car review. And today we're in a 2017 GT350. The exhaust note on this car is completely different from just a run-of-the-mill Mustang because it has that flat plane crank V8 in it, and that kind of goes different than the stock V8s that you hear, because if you look at the crankshaft, it's a line, and if you look at the crankshaft of another V8, it usually is kind of a plus shape. That's why it's cross plane and flat plane crank. There's plenty of videos online that tell you exactly what's going on with that, and I implore you to look at those because it is very interesting, the differences between the two. Now, because this is a GT350, it is going to be handling like a boss. Down to second gear here. Man, you cannot see this speedo, but this is faster than I've ever taken another car around this corner. Are also freaking phenomenal, and this engine, it's so eager, it just wants to go. Man, this thing just pulls like a freight train essentially, but with such an audio presence. It's insane. This is also the first Mustang to receive Magna Ride suspension, so you have a couple of settings. Obviously, I'm in the hardest setting right now, but it's comfortable. It is really, really comfortable. The only place where you have to really get out of it is when the road surface gets bad, and it's just one button away. But now comes the funny thing, you know, flat plane crank. Obviously, you're revving to the moon in cars like that, but here we are, 6th gear. The exhaust flappers actually automatically close to make it a little bit quieter. And we're tacking what, maybe 1750? The engine can actually rev out to 8250 RPM. When you think about those type of RPMs, you really think about, well, VTEC engines, the small 4-cylinder engines revving that high. But the party trick really is that freaking high revving V8 in this car. Man, this thing moves. Actually, some wheel spin back there, but very, very controllable. Man, the other thing that I have to tell you about this car, the clutch in this comes up really, really slowly, and then the last portion of it, it just lets go, and it's really an odd experience, and that's probably one of those things that you have to learn to drive this car. This is, of course, the 550 platform. It actually still retains the original headlights. Now, this is 2017. They changed over the headlights in 2018, but the front end on these cars still remained the same in 2019 as well. So it's kind of the love or hate relationship that I have with the car, because they stepped away from that classic look, but they grew on me, and I really do like these headlights better than the new ones, because the new ones, they look too squinted to me. This has a more muscular look. And of course, with this car, you have that front end bumper. Makes me think of the EcoBoost that I reviewed. It had a similar type bumper on it. Of course, this is original, and that one was an aftermarket bumper. But it gives this car a very aggressive front end look. Rear, of course, you have the quad exhaust. Now it's kind of commonplace. A lot of other Mustangs, even GTs, have that quad exhaust and even active exhaust now. It kind of takes down that uniqueness, but on the other hand, I'm okay with it. And now we're gonna have to get going again. That's okay. Now, the horsepower figures in this car is 526 horsepower and 429 torque, which I think is a funny torque figure because it harkens back to one of the original Ford big blocks in that regard. But it's plenty of power to get yourself going from a stop. But even in 6th gear, it is not hurting for torque because it still wants to move. And if I give just a little bit more gas, it'll still accelerate in 6th gear as well. If you go over to the interior, it's of course like the S550, same kind of layout. But the other thing in the interior that comes up is of course these seats. They are Recaro seats. These are the upgraded seats from the stock ones, and they hold you in place just fine. This is just absolutely amazing. The way this engine revs, the way this engine sounds, you cannot get enough of it. You just let the engine brake too. I didn't even have to touch the brakes right here. Now, of course, all that grip has a reason. It has 295 tires on the front and 305 on the back. So that is freaking wide. And the suspension, I think it is absolutely amazing. The way this is handling, this is just the way a Mustang is supposed to be like. Naturally aspirated, great suspension. Independent suspension too, because the ride is completely different from any of the solid rear axle Mustangs that I've driven. This is just godly. Almost. Let's get on these brakes here real quick. Man, this stops so nicely. And there's not a lot of nosedive either. Man, this is such a visceral feeling. Getting on this car, and it also has a real cool feature where you get on it and you see the revs just get closer and closer on the HUD screen that you have up here. So you will never over rev this car. This is freaking amazing. You don't even have to keep your eyes off the road when you do this kind of thing, because it shows you right in your peripheral vision where you are at. This is such a track orientated car, and it does so well on the regular street. I really think that this is probably the best Mustang you can buy. Yes, the GT500 is going to have that supercharger on it. You're going to have that supercharger whine, but I haven't driven one, but I doubt it feels as even and composed as this car does. Of course, the old one had the solid rear axle, and the new one, the 2020, is the same platform as this, the S550, so I could be completely wrong. But there's also one other thing that you cannot get, that you can in this, and that is the manual transmission. And this 6-speed shifts so nicely. It is such a nice car to drive and shift in. Super short throws. It is amazing. Yes, the clutch, in my opinion, I don't really like it too much, but you'll get used to that. That's the only gripe that I have, and that's because of inexperience, really. Of course, it has different modes in it, and I'm in the sport mode now. I just want to kind of illustrate how loud it gets or how not loud it gets when you change the mode. So right now, I'm just leaving it in 4th gear, and I'm going to go back to normal mode. And you hear that exhaust just completely quiet up. And now if I'm putting it back in sport mode, you hear that exhaust open up again, which is funny. You can start this car, it automatically starts in the quiet mode, and then you can open it up. Of course, you're gonna leave it in the loud mode all the freaking time, because that is half the fun in this car. That lets people know that it is something special. Pops. And the way this car picks up speed, the smoothness of how this revs, the eagerness of how this revs, it is a great experience. And if you ever have the chance to drive one of these cars, you should take it with both hands, because it's such an uncharacteristic thing. If I rev my Mustang all the way to the moon, it just feels like it's coming apart. This, it wants to go, and it wants to rev, and it wants to get higher and higher and higher until you hit the fuel cut, and there's just nothing else like it. Can't get over the fact how amazing these brakes feel. this is where it is at. Man, this thing just gurgles when you downshift. It's amazing. A conclusion, this is just the best Mustang money can buy right here. Such a visceral feeling driving a car like this around. And it has the handling along with the power, and that is just amazing. This is making mine feel like a dinosaur. One of the things that I didn't mention yet, the owner, Peter, which is a Dutch way to saying Peter, is Dutch. So I'm driving a car owned by a Dutch guy in Texas. So he's like almost my brother right now because he's driving a Mustang too, even though this Mustang is way cooler. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. I had a freaking blast. This truly is the best Mustang that I've driven to date. You guys take care, and I'll see you on the flip side. This thing. Oh man.
Lachen.
Oh Jesus.
This is just the car that puts a smile on your face every
It
single
does,
day.
it does, it does.
And you're right, it really invites you to play. It really doesn't like this. There's a 6th gear there only probably to meet the emissions, whatever.
Yeah.
But they could have taken it off because that's no fun, and the car is no fun in it.
Dude, 16.7 miles to the gallon? No way.
No.
No way.
No.
Man, that thing freaking moved.
Yeah, you lost some grip there.
Yeah, just a little bit.
I would almost argue that the car transforms. You can give it to anyone as long as you stay below 3,000 RPM.
Yeah.
It's a perfectly good family car.
Yeah.
Anything above 3,000, you need to be a little bit more experienced, and then the fun starts.
The insanity starts.
Yeah.
Ja, 15.8 mijl to the gallon. Dat is meer realistisch.
Yeah. Watch careful with speed bumps with these.
Yeah.
It scrapes. I mean, I scrape like every week. There's a scrape. I mean, that's the good part. It's just plastic. If I scrape it too bad, you replace it. You don't go bankrupt, right? It's not like it's.
You want to rip it off completely? I'm not going there. Not there. Look.
Oh wow!
Rip it off completely. There you go. There's your candidate right there.
Yeah.
That is where you need to go if you want to completely screw up your car.
And it's in a shade now. You might miss it if you're not paying attention.
If you don't know, and I should probably tell people, say, don't come in. I need to make him after this place. Do not go here.
Ja.
Dat is de GTR.
Ik probeerde te kijken, maar ik zag hem niet.
Ja, ik hoorde hem.
Ja, je hebt gelijk. Witte. Ik zag hem.